can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com. Even though Steve Rosen said, who is going to watch this on Facebook right now? You may be listening to this later on, but I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders, people who inspire me, past guests. You know, you should check out other episodes. Ron Popeil. If no one's heard of Ron Popeil, you know, he's legendary. But wait, there's more. That's what he came up with. And if, you know, the Vegematic, Ginsu knives, ever hear those things? You know, Steve Rosen, I'll introduce in a second officially, but, you know, Steve, when I was talking to Ron and we talked about the journey, when he was starting out on the streets of Chicago, he would go to Maxwell Street. He would wake up at like 4 a.m, buy vegetables, take his folding table out, you know, set up all his stuff, and basically pitch people all day long, and get vegetables and slice them and dice them in the Vegematic. And some of the best pitchmen go on QVC and infomercials and sell their stuff. So anyways, by the way, if anyone knows anyone on QVC or any of these things, I think we're going to talk about Steve and the products. They would be perfect for that venue. So we're going to talk, and you could see it here actually, CreateOn. But before I introduce Steve officially, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And Rise 25, you know, I started with my business partner, John Corcoran, and over the past 10 years of podcasting, Steve, I feel like this is the best thing I've ever done because it helps me give to my relationships. It helps share amazing content. And by giving to my best relationships, we form, you know, different business relationships too, not just personal. And so I've seen no better way to give to my relationships. And Steve is one of those giving people too. So if you have questions about podcasting, we do help businesses launch and run their podcast. Go to rise25.com. There is a video of John and I explaining, you know, what you can do to, you know, get ROI with podcasting. And we do banter like an old married couple. So people get a kick out of that. This, you know, this has been long awaited. Steve Rosen is one of CreateOn's co-founders, and you could see here right here with Magnetiles. And we'll talk about the different amazing stuff that they create. And I always tell people, Steve, this is how I describe you. I go, what does Mattel, Magnetiles, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Willy Wonka, and Monopoly have in common? That's what I say. And I go, Steve, yeah, that's Steve. So he works directly with these many more licensors to put products and deals together. And throughout his 17 years in product development and the entertainment industry, Steve has worked with all the major film studios, licensing agencies, toy companies, creating high-profile products, utilizing best-of-breed licensed IP. And he's executed numerous licensing deals. And most recently, he's brokered licensing deals with 4 leading children's entertainment brands. He runs, you know, software development teams across the globe. You know, he did run software development teams across the globe as well. And check out CreateOn.com. I don't even know how he got that domain. And a fun fact, which most people don't know about Steve, if you know him from a business perspective, cool. If you leave him open for a 3-pointer, he makes about 90% from the field. So think Steph Curry meets Sunday pickup basketball.
If you're 5'7" and $160, you better be able to drill that.
So thanks for joining me.
So wait, let's just stop real. Yeah, my pleasure. But let's talk about that real quick because you know, I don't know about you, but like,
by the way, let me just say something.
Right, and like we've been
Steve,
at this.
There's 4 people watching right now. So are you saying no one who's going to watch? So there are 4 people. And one person just dropped off after saying that. So go on.
Don't, like, for me, like I miss playing basketball like so much. It's one of the things, like it's been my therapy for all these years, and like having that camaraderie that we have on Sunday morning. And honestly, in memory of Brian Olsen, I wore the Brian Olsen deep V-neck for tonight too, just for him. But yeah, I miss it. But yes.
I want to start off with the journey, but you know, lately you work with Magnetiles. I don't know if you want to show a few and just talk about how that came about.
Sure. So the company that I am co-founder of is called CreateOn. We are a strategic partner of an amazing product called Magnetiles. Magnetiles has been around for about 20 years. They are historically a preschool early learning product, and they are I've always kind of called them the Kleenex of the magnetic construction, because they're ubiquitous with quality. And everyone who has,
That's
even if
true.
you have a knock,
It's totally true.
Even if you have a knockoff, people call them Magnetiles because it's a great name, and they are a quality product. You never throw them away. They're kind of handed down from kid to kid. And as I've kind of built this business a little bit, my son, who's 6, he kind of moved on to Legos when he was young. He loves them. It's like his favorite thing. And what we've done is kind of brought him back to it, which has been great, especially as a father who watches his son build STEM stuff. But so anyways, this kind of started as my son's best friend in preschool. His father and I took the kids to a park, and we had known each other, and we got to talking. And he's a talker, and he's just like a boatload of energy. And he's explaining to me how he's in this business group with the guys who serve Magnetiles. I'm like, oh my God, we love Magnetiles. And he's like, I think I have an idea of how to potentially partner with them, because his expertise is in document security and printing. And his idea, the way he pitched it to me, was, I want to take Magnetiles and customize them and print family photos on them. And I was like, awesome. I think that's so cool. And this is kind of what we came to. I mean, that's my son. He's a karate champion. Watch out.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so back and front. So this was his idea, right? And I said, that's super cool. I love the idea. We would totally buy those, but I see something totally different. Like, I see Lego and Lego Star Wars. Like you get licenses, you can build on them, and then they become basically what Legos are. Where Legos, I don't know if you know this, but almost 17 years ago, they were on the brink of bankruptcy.
Oh yeah, I heard about that recently. I did not realize that though.
They partnered with brands, and specifically Star Wars, and it changed their business. They're the biggest toy company in the world by far.
Yeah.
And I think that, Magnetiles is a big brand. They do great business. They're great business people, and they built this amazing product and this amazing brand. And what we're trying to do is bring a whole new, sell into different markets, different verticals. So what I brought was licensing, and I have been in licensing for 13 years. And at a company called Scientific Games, we made licensed slot machines and other slot machines. But so very serendipitously, I said to Aaron, my partner, I said, look, I'm going to the licensing show in May. Come with me in Vegas. Like, it's Vegas, right? Let's have fun regardless. And he's a spontaneous dude, and he like, let's go. So he brought his dad. They've been in this family business for 30, 40 years. And we went out there, and Aaron can just sell. Like, I always say to him, like, he could sell ketchup popsicle, like a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. Like, he could just sell anything. It just drives him. And I was like, look, let's go talk to some licensors. And before we knew it, I knew when we said Magnetiles, you could see the bulb go off in people's head. They're like, oh my God, I get it. Like, if you can do what you're doing on Magnetiles, you can open up this whole new market. So before I came home, and I was so like fanatically inspired by this, that I was like, look, I'm gonna do this with you, and I don't want a penny right now. Like, let's just go at this. I was still working the Scientific Games full time. So, I was working at night doing this. And before I knew it, like, we had 2 licensing deals in place within 3 months. And mind you, we didn't have an artist or a product. Like, we were selling air in many ways. We were selling an idea. And so we came up with some concept for boxes. The Magnetiles team took it to Target, and Target bought it, like, sight unseen, exclusively. So we're off and running, like, to the races. So this is like one of our first products. This is Eric Carl and Magnetiles. Yeah. This is the Brown Bear. And as you can see, they're double-sided. We print on both sides. So we have like a build, and then we also have like a inside play pattern where it's an early education toy. And then, we started coming up with our own builds. We've got a rocket ship that does phenomenal. So the outside is the rocket, and the inside you can sequence the planets. And then, like, I just kept going at it and going at it. And me and Aaron lived about a mile from each other, and we would go on these like long walks and just talk and like build a business plan. And, you know, he had the foresight to really go after these Magnetiles founders and say, look, we think we can do this. We do it together. And they love the idea. And it's really been like a prove it to us situation with them. And we've delivered on everything we've said. And then, you know, sort of the feather in the cap right now is we have a licensing deal with Sesame Street, and we're coming out with 3 new Sesame Street builds in August. And
Wow.
it hasn't been a year, and we're in Target exclusively. In fact, Sunday we're in 500 Targets now. We're going to go to 1,000, and then we go nationwide with the Eric Carle products.
Wow.
In the fall.
That's amazing. Did you see a risk early on of, you know, selling air and be like, listen, why deal with you? Let's go right to Magnetiles. Is there a risk there or not really?
No, I didn't think so. I mean, look, there was a risk for me personally, right? I mean, I've got 2 kids, and we had just moved into this house in Deerfield, and you know, I had a steady, good job. I mean, a really good job that I loved, that I was, you know, entrenched in the culture. I helped build the place at WMS, which became Scientific Games, and I saw this opportunity, and I don't know. I mean, you don't get I never.
It's a leap. Yeah.
It's a leap, but like you have these moments, right? And like this was a moment for me that I knew I had to sort of grab and capture, because I didn't know if I was ever going to get anything like this ever again. Because look, I was dealing with this, my co-founder, who is just a whirlwind of passion and energy, and we just played off each other so well. And he's become, you know, I mean, outside of the fact that we're founding this company, he's become a great friend and a mentor. And you know, it's a family business, and family business so different from my corporate structure life, right? I mean, these 2 worlds couldn't be any more different. But no, to me, the risk was not doing it, honestly.
Yeah. It seems like a perfect combination. Someone who's an expert at printing and someone who's expert at licensing, with a product that is like the Kleenex of that particular niche.
Absolutely.
It's like the perfect storm in a good way.
Yeah. And the other piece of this perfect storm was that the founders of Magnetiles, Mike and Rudy Valena, let us sort of run with this with a leash in some ways, but they let us run with this, and they saw it too. I mean, these guys, they're really smart guys. I mean, Rudy Valena is, you know, I mean, this guy goes to the toy fair, and he's like Willy Wonka. I mean, people just want to be around him. He's Mr. Magnetile, and people just fanatically love the product. You know, this was my first toy fair in New York in February, and the Magnetiles booth is in a small, I mean, it's in the Javits Center. It's massive. Mattel's got this massive booth, you know, Hasbro, massive booth. You know, we were in a 10 by 10 booth, constantly packed, right? Where people just came in and saw what they were doing, right? I mean, because people are just going to buy Magnetiles, but they saw what we were doing, and they're like, oh my God, like this has changed everything, right?
Yeah.
We could, I mean, so yeah, it's barely been a year, and here we are today.
It seems, you know, when you say it, Steve, it seems so obvious, right? It's like, how was someone not, it's like the best ideas sometimes are like, how is someone not doing that before? Right.
Right. And there's a lot of competition in magnetic construction. So Magformers is a big competitor of theirs. They had a brand, so they were working with Paw Patrol, but they just had these like little stickers on there, and it really meant nothing. So what we always said when we started this thing is we didn't want to be what is known in the licensing industry as sticker slappers. Like we didn't want to just slap something on there.
It's like the worst insult you could give to a licensor. It's like, you're a sticker slapper.
Yeah. So we wanted to do something different, and we wanted to take advantage, not only take advantage of these brands, but this amazing children's IP like Eric Carle. And look, I read Brown Bear and Hunter Caterpillar with my kids before this even happened. But, you know, once we started getting the product out there, I just didn't realize the magnitude of who he is and what he's done for children, right? Like, it's these books. I mean, they still sell. Brown Bear, I think, sells 1 million copies a year still.
That's amazing.
And that book,
we have it. Yeah,
of course. Very Hungry Caterpillar is 50 years old. I mean, it's been around forever, and people love it. And, you know, it's all about timing in many ways, and I think we timed this right. wasn't on purpose, but we just all things kind of combined.
So we have Eric Carl, Sesame Street, and you could print. People can send in their family pictures and things like that.
Yeah, so that's my Magnetiles off of CreateOn, where you can build and put your own family photos in them. On the right, create and display, learn and play on the other side is where you're going to get all of our build sets, as well as
So this is like there's numbers, like what else?
Yep. So that's the bus. That's the 1, 2, 3 school bus. You can build a bus, right? And then in the inside play pattern is all the numbers and the functions, so you can learn math. We have a schoolhouse where you can build the school, and in the inside is all
the rocket
letters.
ship.
And there's the rocket, and the inside is all the planets. We have a castle where you can build the castle, right? And look, the thing is it's very similar to Lego, right? Where you have all these Legos and they all kind of get mashed together, right? But now all these Magnetiles that you have that are sort of, plain clear colors, now you can have Elmo on one of them, right? Like it's one of those things, right? Like where kids are going to take them, build whatever they want to build with it, but now they've got characters' faces, or they could have themselves on them.
Yeah.
Right?
It seems limitless. So what's next? What other, if someone is like, oh, what's the next on the docket? Like this company or this brand should be like calling you for partnering with Magnetiles.
Sure. I mean, look, I think the gold standard of licensing right now is Disney. I mean, are we there yet? I don't know. We definitely, we could do something with them. We're still relatively new, and I know we still have to prove ourselves, and we got a long way to go here. What's next for us though, I believe, is customization. So like, to me, what is going to be next for us and what we're going to look to do in 2021 is customize these toys. So like one of the things that we had done, obviously the kids were out of school. My son, everyone's kids have been pulled out of school. The 1, 2, 3 school bus has windows in it, right? So it's got all these windows. So for my son's kindergarten teacher, we put the kids in the windows and made it the Miss V school bus, right? And now cool. it's an amazing toy, and it's kind of a centerpiece and a collectible a little bit. I believe that we will and get to sports stadiums because we can build a basketball court. We can build a hockey rink. I believe we'll get to that. And I believe that you said it. I mean, my partner has always said, this is paper. So you can do whatever you want with it. And I think we got a lot of great ideas coming. The next one that launches outside of Sesame Street was sort of a stroke of genius too, because this technology that we use for our printing capabilities can raise the ink. So we can do Braille technically if we wanted to, and I do believe we'll get there, but we made like sun catchers on the tiles. So like you can raise the ink so it can catch paint, and we're going to sell kits of tiles with Sesame Street and Eric Carl on it. And we're going to sell these little paint tubes with it, and the kids can use it to paint in whatever colors they want. It dries, and now it becomes another tile that goes in your collection.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Right here, it's actually funny. So I had the person who started Baby Einstein, and they grew it to 20 million, 5 employees, I think, and then sold to Disney.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So who else is the gold standard considered like high up there with Disney? Who else is like
in licensing
to shoot for? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're looking at. I mean, we look, obviously, Sesame Street, to me, the Q score, everyone knows what Sesame Street is. Everyone knows who Elmo is. We were partnering with them because I believe that they're number one, an amazing brand, but they're coming back. I mean, they've got a movie coming out next year. You can see on CNN, they did a whole thing about COVID and they did something about, standing for against racism. So they're really on
it was amazing.
Yeah. So they're a great brand that I just think needed a little bit of a kick there. They've got this show on HBO Max called The Not So Late Show with Elmo. So we're doing a product with that because we can sort of turn on a dime and create a product, and we're gonna launch like a set that correlates to the show. So they're just doing a ton of stuff, and we're gonna ride a wave with them, and that to me is like our next year. I think we'll probably look at one brand a year, would be my guess, to sort of add to our collection. But there's a ton of great brands, and now we're to the point where like people have started to come to us to say, all right, well, what's next? What do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? we're still sort of.
That's a good place to be.
It's a great place to be.
Talk about when you approach a brand before, like you have the street cred like you do. What do you say to them? Like, what do you say to Sesame Street to be like, to let them see the vision in the light?
Honestly, with Sesame Street, they saw it immediately. I mean, I had a conversation with them, and they said they knew, every single person on that licensing staff knew what magnetiles were. They just never knew that you could do anything with them, right? Like they never even thought that there would be any opportunity, because they've done things with Duplo, which is like a younger brand's Lego, and they've had other opportunities there.
Yeah.
But this was something that Magnetiles is a big brand, right? Like it's a brand unto itself. So it's almost co-branded in many ways, right? It's Sesame Street and Magnetiles.
Yes.
Just like look, Magnetiles and Brown Bear in the world of Eric Carle, right? Like to me, this was just a no-brainer, right?
Well, to you it is, but sometimes you have to share a little bit of the vision.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, to me, the pitch was to every single one of these licensors was, you have Lego and you have Lego Star Wars, and it's all ubiquitous. It's all one and the same.
And you drop a Magnetile and walk out of the room.
And we walk out of the room.
Do you want to be Magnetile in Sesame Street? Let's do this.
That's right. So and look, we had to.
Well, that's Steve. That's a key point, right? So like part of when you go to them, you show them a vision of something else that worked really well, and then relate it to yours. Right.
Look, for instance, Hasbro, right? Maybe we'll do some with Hasbro. I have a prior relationship there. They want to see a 3-year, like your forecast. Well, we don't have any forecasts right now, right? All we know is there's a lot of interest. Target took something exclusively. We're just not there yet. And that's why, like, to me, Disney is not far.
They want to see like
success,
past success or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. But some of these, Eric Carle has 120 licensors, right? I mean, so they have a ton of licenses that they've given out and they've worked with. When they saw this, they jumped on it immediately. Yeah. And we really haven't had a lot of like pushback per se, which, I want failure along the way. This is not all going to be roses and
what other, like, give an example of another Eric Carle license. Like, what else do they put their stuff on?
Oh, you name it.
Because not all of them are gonna be like hits out of the gate, right? So
no. Yeah, I mean, look, they've got night lights, they've got plush, they've got actually one of the really cool ones that we saw at the show this year is a guy who actually farms caterpillars that turn into butterflies. So he sells that to nature stores. It's an Eric Carle, and it's a very hungry caterpillar butterfly that turns into a butterfly. So they've got a ton of them. They do juice boxes and lunch bags, and I mean they've got everything, right? Because it's such a big brand. Sesame Street is more, I'd say they're a little bit pickier. I mean, because they are a non-for-profit. I mean, Sesame Street is a non-for-profit company. I mean, that's just what it is. So they're a little bit more selective, I would say. But look, I keep saying, I mean, every time that I've pitched this to a licensor, they get it immediately, and they're, well, how do we do this, right? Build-A-Bear is another example, right? And there is this piece where STEM is hot, right? I mean, STEM toys are hot right now. So to get on board with a brand name like Magnetiles is beneficial for both parties.
Yeah. Let's work back for a second.
Sure.
Okay. CreateOn, Scientific Games. Tell me a story where you got pushback, right? And this is, I just want to point out, it's an overnight success after 13 years, right? It's like you've been in this industry, you've built up this relationship. It's not like you just show up like, hey, I think we should do licensing. Like you have an expertise in this that you've built up over a decade, right? And so it's kind of all that stuff comes together. So work back to Scientific Games. What were some of the stuff you were working on there?
So, I mean, worked with every single movie studio. Our big brands were Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Wizard of Oz. And then sort of my big products that I sort of oversaw, from start to finish were The Simpsons and James Bond. So like those were the two that that were like sort of the feather in my fro, if you will.
What kind of stuff do you do with The Simpsons?
So that was a tough one. I mean, look, they've got success upon success. You deal with brands all the time, at least I did, right? You have brands that are very protective over their intellectual property, right? That's what they have. And, you know, the great story with The Simpsons is we went out to LA. We made this pitch. We had this PowerPoint. I had this designer, this guy named Jamie Van, who's amazing talent. And we went out there and we showed Fox and some of the people from The Simpsons what we were going to do. It was cool. All shook hands, left. They called us the next day and they said, look, we want you to come back next week. We want you to do that again at the Fox studio, and Mac Groening is going to come. Great. So we go there.
What were you pitching exactly? Just to give me a sense.
What we were going to do for the first game. We had already had the brand. We already negotiated.
This was for a slot machine. What was it?
Yeah, for the slot machine.
Slot machine. Okay.
So yeah. So first Simpsons slot machine ever. They had never been in the slot industry. And look, in the slot industry, brands are everywhere, right? Like everything has been done in the slot machine industry, but a few hadn't, right? The Simpsons was one of them. So we kind of got there, and we were, anyways, we went back out to LA, and I opened up my computer and we're about to start this meeting. This woman sits down. I didn't know who she was. There were like 20 people in the room. And all of a sudden she stands up and she goes, I'm Matt Groening's assistant. Matt will not be coming to this meeting today. He doesn't agree with the creation of a slot machine. She literally stood up, walked out, tried to go out the door, but it was locked. So she was fighting to get out the door. She finally gets out the door, and we all kind of look at each other like, well, okay, now what? So that product in particular was probably the most challenging product ever created, because they wanted control over so much of it as we went on. They didn't understand we were creating a gambling machine. They wanted to create a video game. And we were creating a gambling experience, right? Which is what slot machines are. There's story there, but it's not, you know, these are people who are looking to ride a wave and win money in many cases. So that was a tough one. The other one, James Bond,
let's stick on that one for a second, Steve. How did you overcome that? The lady walking out being like, he doesn't agree with this.
Well, apparently Matt didn't own all of the license, so the deal had already been done. But we had to work with their team. I mean, their team ended up creating a bunch of art for us. They did. It was a whole. It took almost 3 years to get that game out. And most games we do take between a year and a half to make a product. Wow. So it was not pretty. But look, I learned a lot, right? Like every step along the way as I've worked with a brand, some are difficult, some are easy, but I've learned along the way of how to deal with all these people. And look, every single one of these brands, I try and make a connection with someone there within the team, within the brand team at the company. The perfect example for me was with James Bond, right? James Bond was the next big brand that we went after. They had never done a slot machine before. They had, we finally came to terms with it, and it took 15 years. And I finally got, I was the brand representative for Scientific Games, and they had a representative from Eon Productions, which owns James Bond. And me and this guy, his name is Michael Tavares, we just became friends. I mean, we had no other choice, but because we were going to be locked in this thing for 7 years together creating products, we had to explain what we do, right? So it's slot 101. How do you what is a slot machine? I mean, you're explaining all these things to these people as you go, while they're in the movie, space and assets and all this stuff. And we needed so much to create these games because they had become these big cinematic experiences. I mean, they really became AAA video games in many cases. That's what the size and scope of these products. And we were creating 4 games at once. I mean, it was brutal. But if I didn't have that relationship to lean on with Michael at Eon, we wouldn't have gotten these games done. So that's the one thing that I always stress in these negotiations. And when we're creating products, it doesn't matter if it's, video games, slot machines, magnetiles. If you don't have that one relationship with the licensor, you're in trouble because you need stuff approved. You may be in a time crunch in many cases, and you need to be able to go to someone and say, look, hey, I need this and I need this fast. And I have been able to cultivate those relationships over the years. And that's, I believe, probably one of my strengths.
How did you decide, okay, Simpsons? Because again, like I'm trying to think. There's too many options here. There's so many ways you can take this. So many like brands and licensing deals. How did you decide? Okay, let's zero in and focus on Simpsons.
Well, look, Jeremy, we had 60 brands at one point. I mean, we were doing games for the Beach Boys. We did a game about Cher. We had Michael Jackson. I mean, we did a Ferris Bueller's Day Off game, which was my personal favorite. Gremlins, Austin Powers. I mean, you name it, it was done. The Simpsons. I mean, really, it was a passion project for a lot of people around the office, and we also thought that. Look, when you're walking a slot floor, it's bells and whistles, it's lights. I mean, it is sensory overload, right? So to see a beacon up top where we put this gold donut, right? You automatically knew that was The Simpsons. So maybe you would just go try that, right? And then once you sit down, then it was the game developer's job to create a great product and a great experience and a great map experience. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just, we did some research testing and stuff like that, but it was the passion of a designer or a design team. Here's what we can do. And they came up with some great ideas and we went after it.
And so
I left by the way, the last slot machine that I saw at what G2E, which is the Global Gaming Expo, which I was like, look, we as an industry have hit rock bottom, was the Sir Mix-a-Lot slot machine. That's when I knew that this thing was almost over. The name of the bonus in the slot machine was "I like big bucks." All right, there you go.
Nice pun there.
Yeah.
So is it declined? What's the industry like now? I mean, obviously, Vegas is kind of shut down for the past few months, but besides that, before that.
Yeah, it's a tough industry right now, man. That I think I didn't know what I was doing when I left. In fact, I would have stayed. I would have stayed my entire career there.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, slot. The casinos are a breeding ground for germs, I would say. So that it's look, I'm still very close with a lot of people there. I wish them nothing but success, and it's going to be a rough road the next couple of years until there's some sort of therapeutic or vaccine to get people back in the casinos. Having said that, I saw a video on Twitter a couple of days ago, someone walking through the Cosmo, and it looked like nothing had ever happened. So, who knows? I would just say these casinos are going to take as much measures as they can. They don't want to be the people that are going to have that first outbreak potentially of COVID. And, but there's been a lot of consolidation in that space. While I was there 13 years, we went through 3 mergers. I mean, everyone was eating everyone, and they took two of the biggest players between Scientific Games and Bally, combined them, and thought they were going to get 40% market share because it was 20 and 20, and it just didn't work out that way. So there's been a lot of new competition there and different markets, and it's a tough space right now. I think a lot of that stuff will go online. Sports betting will obviously, come up, and that's a big part of what Scientific Games will do, and online play. So
when you're doing deals, Steve, what kind of people do you need in place? We were talking before we hit record about, patent attorneys. Like, shout out to Rich Goldstein. He actually, we were talking about Rich actually before and he actually has already liked this, so he's watching this. Steve, hey, right Rich. Now, Rich Goldstein. Hey,
buddy.
And talking, I talked to him earlier today about patents and licensing and all that stuff. What type of professionals do you need to have in place to do this type of deal? Because it's a lot of moving parts here.
Tons. So I would say I was probably more on the business end. Then we absolutely had multiple attorneys on these deals. These were huge deals that would go through for multi-million dollars. So they, these deals would take, in some cases, 6 months to a year to get some of these deals done. Hey, Rich, I saw that. That's cool. And then outside of that, an entire game development team to do the pitch, right? I mean, we would have to get put together. Look, what cabinet is it going to go on to? What is the art going to look like? What is the inspiration? If it's a music artist, what music do we need? And do we have to then sub-license that? Do we have to sub-license an actor per se? I mean, we did Top Gun in like 2006 without Tom Cruise, because he just didn't want to be involved in it. So we did it with the other cast members. So there was a ton. I mean, a great game designer, obviously, and Scientific Games has the best game designers, I would say, in the business. Jeff Nauman, who did Rampage. I don't know if anyone knows the original Rampage. I mean, Jeff Nauman, yeah, Jeremy Hornick, Jamie Van, I mean, all these guys Joel Jaffe, all these guys have been there forever, and they're the best in the business. Mike Mastropietro, a lot of guys.
Who do you consider some of your mentors? I know I've talked to Roger Sharp. He's an amazing guy.
The Godfather of pinball.
Yeah. There's even what is it? Drunken something. There's an episode.
Drunk History. Yeah.
Drunk History. There's an episode of him in Drunk History. You have to watch it. I embedded it in my Roger Sharp interview. It's amazing. You know, there's a drunk. If you know you've made it when there's a Drunk History episode about you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Roger, I would say, was the guy who taught me how to build relationships. I mean, this guy had legitimately, by the time he was gone in 12, 13, he legitimately had a physical Rolodex on his desk. He wouldn't even go to the computer. It was this spinning Rolodex that you would have to get numbers out of. An amazing guy, taught me a ton. Another guy at Scientific Games.
What did he teach you about building relationships?
Roger was very hands-on with everybody. I mean, it was a hello, a handshake. He always brought candy to meetings. He was known as the candy man. He's the sweetest man ever. But he would cultivate these relationships. And look, I mean, I think I've been doing that forever, just because of my parents too, that they're like that as well. My mom is a choral director here in Buffalo Grove, and she's been, she's got 50 people in her chorus group, and my parents have been doing that forever. So I kind of came out of me a little bit, but Roger was really the one. And I think he really showed me how to be calm, cool, and collected when dealing with a licensor, because you're dealing with someone's intellectual property, which in many cases is worth, with The Simpsons, it's worth billions. Like that property is worth billions of dollars, and they're going to treat, and that's what they have, right? And that's their currency. So they're not going to let you screw it up. And we dealt with that through many licenses over the years, with Hasbro and Monopoly, and some licensors are going to let you do more, and some aren't going to let you do a lot. But that Roger for sure. I had another mentor there too, in particular off the top of my head at Scientific Games, named Brad Rose and Phil Gelber. Brad was pure energy. Once again, could command a room. Was an amazing guy. He taught me so much. And like along my career, I've just had these cheerleaders, I would say. And like Brad was absolutely one of those guys who just pushed and pushed and pushed me, because, when I got Scientific Games, I was legitimately pulling lights out of like the button panels, because they used to be these little LEDs. And that's what I did when I started there. I mean, so I had to work my way up. And then another guy, Phil Gelber, who came from the video game industry, but he's a lifer at Scientific Games, and he has been through so much. I mean, so much bullshit over the years. They're dealing with so much churn and change, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and he did not. He was calm, cool, and collected all the time, and measured about everything he did. My dad. My dad has been one of these guys who just he's a worker. I mean, he just works hard. Even today, I don't know if he can retire. I mean, he found golf, right, which is great, but he just loves working, and he just, he always taught me how to be resourceful and how to do a job and show up. And
what does he do?
He's a CPA.
Okay.
He's an accountant. And I talk about this like right now, a year in with Aaron Singer, my business partner. I mean, this guy is just servant leadership, man. I mean, it walks in the door every morning. What can I do for you? what can I do? And that he's the boss, but he doesn't like be called the boss, right? Like he's definitely funding all this and he's on top of everything, but he wants to know what he can do for you to make your day easier. And, you know, also along the way, I got to say, like, all these people, as much as they've been cheerleaders for me, have let me kind of do my thing and learn as I go and make mistakes, because that's been key for me along the way, is learning from the mistakes that I've made in my career in business. And it's important. And, you know, at CreateOn, we've made some mistakes, but like there's been success. Sometimes I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop, which is probably just me in many ways, because I have a lot on the line here, because I want this to work so badly. But it's very important to me to learn from whatever mistakes that I've made over the years.
Yeah. I want to go back also to kind of the start. You moved to LA. I mean, the real reason I wanted to do this interview is I want to know how to win at slot machines. I mean, is there like...
Sure. Don't play. That's my advice.
Okay. Yeah. That's not the answer I was looking for. You moved to LA. So this was after college?
Yeah. So
why'd you go to LA?
Indiana University, go Hoosiers. Wanted to get into film. I mean, to me, that was like my passion always. I love film. I love watching movies. The making of things has always interested me more than anything. I watch a ton of documentaries on just like creation of things. Like I like to create at heart. And so after leaving Indiana, I had a cousin who lived in Los Angeles. Like he was a doctor and didn't really know him all that well. And he like, my dad called him, was like, "Hey, can Steve stay with you if he looking for a job out there?" And he was like, "Sure." I'm like, "All right, great." So on a whim, it was like something I would have never done. Like I would say, like, I'm probably somewhat risk averse, but to me, this was now or never. And if I was going to do this, I was going to do it. So I moved out there. And man, it was rough. I mean, I didn't know a lot of people. I mean, this was like in 2003. So there wasn't like social networks. I mean, I had a couple of buddies from college. So I had some friends and some guys from high school that I knew out in San Diego, one in Santa Barbara. And I just started going out, and I remember like faxing my resume to like these different places. And like, I just like,
what did you study in school?
Telecommunications, design, and production. So I was doing production work. Yeah. So, so finally I got a call from this company, which was called Maverick Films, which was Madonna's film company. So I went in for the interview, and she was an internship, right? And no pay. And I walked in, I was so out of my element. Like I had like, nothing. I mean, like I didn't know anything. And, she called me like 2 days later. She's like, "Look, when can you start? You can do script coverage. You sit at a desk, and you can get coffee and, be an intern." So internship, starts, and I'm making friends, and it's great. I mean, I'm like in the business. Like we're like they're making a movie. Like it's Madonna's film company. Upstairs is Maverick Records with Alanis Morissette and, this guy, Guy O'Siri, who's running the whole thing. And this guy's, I think he manages U2 now. And, so they're making this movie, Agent Cody Banks, which is with Frankie Muniz and Hilary Duff. So that movie had come out and had done well. And so the CEO of Maverick Films, guy's name was Mark Morgan, who ended up becoming very successful as well. He had an assistant. I think she called Madonna at home in London, and she didn't realize the time difference, if I recall. And I remember she fired her. Like she fired her on the phone, and literally the next day I took over as this guy's assistant, because I was probably just the next man up. I was just so like before I knew it,
she woke her up too early, and then she just goes boom.
No, it was like in the middle of the night.
Oh, middle of the night. Okay.
Yeah. So the next thing I know, like I'm this guy's assistant, and I'm, getting it. I'm like, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, like shit that like I never thought I would do. I was doing. We were having great meetings. Jessica Simpson would come in. Like we had Amy Smart in for meetings. Like it was great. It was amazing. But like all my buddies from Indiana and from Illinois, and everyone was home, right? So like that's like I missed that. And at some point, I mean, the crazy part with serendipity of all this was like, I had a guy who from Indiana. His name is Mike Farah. And he was going to come out, and we were going to look for an apartment together. And because I was going to stay out there, finally, like my grandma got sick, And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to come back. I'm going to see what's going on, and then I'll come back. And finally I was like, look, I'm not coming back. I'm just going to go back to Chicago. Mike ends up getting a place out there. Mike Farah today is the CEO of funnyordie.com. He's one of
Really?
the most powerful people
Wow.
in Hollywood. Yeah. And an amazing guy, and someone I keep in touch with today. And he's helped me with some things over the years. And we did an Anchorman game, and he's close with Will Ferrell. So he helped me with some stuff. But,
Will
you know,
Ferrell co-founded it? Is that how it worked?
yeah,
Will Ferrell founded it?
yeah, him and Adam McKay. So it's about time. So I came back and I went to Midway Games, which did Mortal Kombat, and I knew I wanted to stay in entertainment. And I got to stay there for 2 years and meet some unbelievable people at Midway Games. I mean, the guy who created Mortal Kombat, his name is Ed Boon. I mean, he was just this unbelievable guy. This guy named Adam Boyce, who runs Iron Galaxy, this guy John Vignette, all these guys from Midway were ended up becoming so utterly successful. My boss was a guy named Matt Booty. He runs Microsoft Studios, which runs Minecraft today. But Midway was just so poorly run at the time. I think they're doing a documentary about it that comes out soon. I can't wait to see it. But
what did Midway Games do?
Home console games, Mortal Kombat,
Okay.
NFL Blitz, Slugfest, NBA Ballers. I mean, they were doing a ton of games for Xbox and PlayStation. So I was an assistant there for the guy who ran the studio again. And then all of a sudden, serendipity, right? Somebody needed an associate producer, but it was going to have to be in San Diego. So they asked me if I wanted to go out to San Diego. I was like, no, I don't want to go back out there. I'm comfortable. I think I had a girlfriend at the time. Signed to the games.
The weather's too nice. I want to be in Chicago.
Yeah. I would not want to be here.
Well, freeze my butt off.
Below 30
I would have been sign
out.
me up. No, I'm just
I should have. Yeah. So anyways, WMS and Midway used to be one and the same. So they were across the street from each other on Roscoe. And I knew someone at WMS, and they were doing slot machines. I literally one day I called him. I walked across the street from the interview. I got the job. I was there for 13 years. We built an amazing culture at Scientific Games, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And to me, the experience is what led me to where I am today.
Were you getting burnt out in LA? What do you think pushed you out of there? Because it seems like you were in front of some of the people and the things that you wanted or thought that you wanted at the time.
Yeah,
right?
Look, I 100%, and I think about that. I mean that it was a moment for me, right? I definitely think about that a ton. For me, it has always been about friends and family. And living away from my folks and watching my sister, she's 5 years younger than me, grow up it was hard. It was too hard, right? I mean, it was just, my parents and my family is everything. And, I think just being away from them for that long, and it wasn't even that long, but just the thought of, not coming back, but building a life out there. And I started, and I tried, and I had a girlfriend, and I thought I was going to be out there forever. I really did. And then when my grandma got sick and I came home and I was with friends and I saw my family, and I was like, I just don't think I can go back. And I just, my dad, funded me to go there and let me pursue a dream. And, they probably didn't want me to go in many ways, but, it was another life lesson that you got to let your kids kind of, grow and spread their wings. And that's what they let me do.
First of all, Steve, I want to thank you. You always are so generous, and everyone should check out CreateOn.com. I have two last questions, but as you can see, check it out.
Please do.
Yeah, and a Target near you and online. You're on Amazon also, and on your website. I always ask two questions. One, what's been a low moment, challenge point where you had to push through? And then on the flip side, what's been a proud moment for you? Because this journey is kind of a winding road. What's been a challenge point?
I have this very vivid memory of flying back from when my grandma was sick from Chicago. I was leaving Chicago and going back to Los Angeles. And I was in a middle seat And that's a 4-hour flight. I mean, that's a long flight. And I just remember sitting sort of probably for over 3 hours with my head in my hands, sort of like down. I don't know what the other people next to me thought, but I was just like, I couldn't believe I was leaving my family again. Like going back there, I think I landed, and I may have called my mom. I was like, look, I'm sorry. Like I'm coming home. Like I don't want to be here anymore. You know, I want to be, back in Chicago, where it's not even as much as comfortable. It's just like, why would I want to live without them and watching all these people around me, and I have been in this place where this thing hits me, and I think about it with my son all the time, where it's this line, it's show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And I have this amazing group of friends from high school and college that I wouldn't trade for anything. And we all have kind of come up, and all these guys that I know and love so much are so successful in business and in their lives. And we are just so utterly connected that to not really be able to see them at times outside of Zoom and getting to see you, although I do miss you in 3D on Sundays. I think going back and that was like my low point, but then, I kind of came out of it at some point. I was like, I'm just coming home. The proud moment for me, like I've always built things for companies, right? Like I have built, slot machines and video games and seeing them on the floor after you're done with them and putting in all this hard work is very, very inspiring. And it's this great feeling, right? Because it's entertainment. You're giving people entertainment. But man, when I walked into Target and saw this product sitting on a shelf, that was one of the most emotional moments for me, because I mean, I never would have imagined that anything like this would have ever happened to me. And like I did this with a small group of people, a couple of production guys, and this amazing artist Amanda Lirius and Aaron, and we did it together. And to see that and in a couple of weeks here, on Sunday, Father's Day, it's going to go out to 500 more stores. We're going to have an end cap at Target, to walk my kids into there and to see what I'm doing. Like nothing will ever top that. Right. Like, is it going to be successful? I believe it's going to be, right. We will get back to normalcy at some point and people will walk Target and see this thing. Right. But as long as I don't care if my kids have to go into Target with a mask, and my wife and my family to see what we have done and what I have really, it took one email, on a whim to this guy that I didn't even know to set this thing in motion. And that's all it takes sometimes. Right. It's just that one, communication or whatever. And that to me, I will never forget. And we've got this amazing picture, like people done some articles on what we had done, but sharing that moment with Aaron and then, soon here with my family, like that's amazing. And that's something I will never forget.
Everyone check out CreateOn.com. Steve, amazing. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate this. I love what you do.
Thanks.
Take care.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.